Dear all, allow me first to welcome all of you, whether you are a Fiber to the Home Council members or our partners across the world, and all the people who join us with this video interview with Mr. Bader Al Zeidi. First, I would like to introduce Mr. Bader. Mr. Bader Al Zeidi is the acting CEO of Oman Broadband company. He has over 17 years of work experience in the ICT domain. Prior to that, he served in Oman Tel with responsibility for network planning and design in both fixed and wireless networks. Mr. Zaidi is a board member in Fiber to the Home Council MENA, and he served before as the chairman of the Regulatory and Policy Committee within the Council. Mr. Bader has written a few white papers and articles that were published in internationally recognized conferences in the domain of 5G and Fiber to the Home network design and rollout. Mr. Bader Zaidi completed his honor degree in computer science and MBA from Strathclyde University, UK, and he also holds Master of Program Management and Master of Project Management certificates from George Washington University, USA. Mr. Bader Zeidi, thank you very much to accept to be our first guest in this video interview series. The Fiber to the Home Council MENA is launching to share stories and experiences under the new reality of living and working under the COVID-19. Thank you, Mr. Bader. And first, I would like to ask you to describe your own network, let's say, work from home experience. How do you communicate with your team, partners, and customers?
Thank you, Khulud. It's my pleasure to be to share some of our experience during this pandemic situation. Indeed, it's a unique living experience. And if I may share some of the experience we had from a work perspective. First of all, Oman Broadband is actually a fully state-owned company, and our mandate is to build the fiber infrastructure across the sultans, and then we lease it back to the licensed service operator. So primarily what we do is basically we build this fiber where today in this pandemic situation, everyone is after. And most of our work is basically a field-related work. And we depend a lot on our contractor in fulfilling most of the construction work. So when the pandemic started and then we felt things is going to last longer, as Oman Broadband, we've taken an early measure. In fact, we've created a small committee which was in line with the Supreme Committee that was created by the government at that time. And then we started basically analyzing all the needs and the means to allow us to continue work even if we have to stop coming back to office. And then we started gradually doing some trial where we've allowed people to go back home and work from home. And then we started also going further where we've allowed complete functional departments. And that was even before any announcement from the Supreme Committee in Oman. And then we started fulfilling almost 90% of our workforce working from home before even any specific direction from the government committee. And we were able actually to fulfill most of the work. So we've enabled a specific DBN for key people. We've enabled VoIP using some special tools. Everything was fine. We had an element of, I would say, a challenge when it comes to tendering and procurement part, because this has an element of sensitivity. But then we've managed to find ways around it, and we really run most of our committee work as normal. It's a pleasant experience to a certain extent where everyone works from home, feeling safe and also feeling more satisfied that he's able to fulfill his work duties despite all of the situation. Yeah.
Great efforts from my broadband side and the people actually who work there. So, Mr. Bader, do you think that the work efficiency increased or decreased?
What we've seen, what we've noticed even also during our trial, the productivity for some specific division has really increased, and people feeling more comfortable, more freedom. And if I may give few aspects why it was really more efficient. First of all, the time spent in driving from home to office, that was completely safe. People used to spend no less than 1 hour going and 1 hour coming back. This is a minimum. Some people goes up to 1 hour and a half to 2 hours in some cases. It depends on the traffic situation. So all of that time was safe. When you are in office, definitely you normally cheer people. You take a break where you have your coffee, you discuss with people. People comes and go. So there's a lot of time wasted where you don't really realize. And one important aspect I have personally noticed is that when we conduct meeting online, people comes on time. So when we say the meeting 11 o'clock, everyone's 11 o'clock is online.
Okay.
When we were physically at office, it's a natural that people comes at least 10 minutes late, maybe 15 minutes late. Sometimes unintentionally, honestly, especially when you are inviting people from an outside, they get stuck in some traffic and so on. And this is really paid off. So whenever we conduct a meeting online and we specify the time, everyone comes on time. In
Amazing.
fact, 1 minute, 2 minutes, we feel people are late, and then we start the meeting. So I personally felt there's a lot of, I would say, to a certain extent, unpleasant habit that we used to do unintentionally in most of the cases. It has gone away. And we become more productive and effective. So far, at least from Oman Broadband specific experience.
Well, I will totally agree with you, because I noticed also that my sisters and brothers work also from home. I feel that they work more. The number of hours. I noticed that they really work more. So maybe I will go that really it is the efficiency, it increased with working from home. But Mr. Bader, so many people, they find it difficult to work from home. For Mr. Bader, for how long do you think you can survive working from home?
I will give two angles to these questions. First of all, from a company perspective, I think we are ready to go longer than this overall. Personally, I can survive much more than this. Maybe the element that would make us want to go back to office is only missing office, missing socialization with people.
Yeah.
But the conducting work itself, I think we can go longer than this. We are now more ready. I would say more mentally ready. People are getting familiar with all of these video conferencing tools, getting ready to work from home and so on. Only the element aspect related to socialization that we miss. Sometimes when you go to office, not only about conducting work, it's also about meeting people, physically discussing things and so on. I would say only that element is missing. And I also started requesting my team to look into the future where we need to be ready for this kind of work scenario. People sometimes face difficulties coming to office. We need to revise our HR policy. We need to be ready where we, at a given point of time, instead of expanding in offices, we remain with the same size of office, but then we identify people that are willing to work from home. Because honestly, the experience we have gone through, we never expected to be as successful as it went. And I think, and I would expect maybe most companies would now revisit most of their HR policy, attendance policy, and they would be more flexible and towards enabling work from home, even despite any specific pandemic situation or anything. So I think now we are getting ourselves ready for any future scenario of this, or as even an option and a choice that we could give to our staff.
Perfect. So, Mr. Bader, allow me to ask you, do you have kids in the family?
Yes, I do.
Bless them. How do you evaluate your learning experience?
First of all, I have 4 kids, two girls and 2 boys, and the oldest, she is on grade 9, and the youngest is still not going to school. So I have 3 actually at school. And while my kids were in a private school, I think also the school has took an immediate actions where they've enabled themselves to conduct most of their teaching materials online. I would say to a certain extent, maybe the tools, the materials were good enough, but the whole experience was not well prepared. I would say more mentally and also from a skill perspective. The teachers, that teach, all of a sudden you make them switch from teaching physically at school to teaching online. There are elements of skill that I felt personally would have been required to be enabled to enable all of these teachers to do this teaching online. Same also on the kids' sides and also the family parts, forcing the kid in himself to get into the experience of teaching while he is at home, not dress the same dress that he normally goes. So there were an element of mentality programming that both used to go through, which was not there. So when they are in front of the screen, they tell them that you are not in a teaching situation now, while you are expected to do some learning and so on. So I would say it was not very easy experience, but we've managed as much as possible. Maybe myself and their mom, we are into the actually ICT sector, so we're very familiar with this, but it was not actually easy. I think now both parents and the school needs to use that as a learning and develop this further. And where actually most of the things that were not good enough in the experience, we need to eliminate, and maybe other things that needs to be improved.
Yes. Perfect. So now I will go more to the fiber to the home world. So actually you described, Mr. Bader, the role played by Oman Broadband to facilitate digital communication during the COVID-19, and clearly they invest and they did a great effort for this. What do you think that would be the long-term adaptation to work or study from home, and how do you think this will change our life going forward?
I would say the bright side of COVID-19 pandemic was it has opened a lot of opportunity for a better adaptations of the technologies and specifically the fiber infrastructure. We've seen from maybe March, I would say February, March and April, where we've lived all of these situation of lockdown and restrictions, a number of orders that we've received actually in this 3 months were more than the number of orders we've received in last year months. And people were not able to realize the quality of service on the old technology until they started using this rich bandwidth type of applications. When you do video conferencing, you need a better infrastructures, a better technology that can support you, because all of these applications are very sensitive to bandwidth and so on. Yeah. So people start realizing the need of a better infrastructure when they were forced to work from home. Also, from a regulatory perspective, in Oman specifically, few applications were not allowed to be use most of these VoIP applications and so on. Thanks to TRA Oman, the regulatory, they've really, one of the actions they've done, they've enabled and they've allowed most of these applications, which was not accessible to most of the people. And that's where people start feeling the need for a better infrastructures. And we started getting a lot of requests for people switching from one technology to another, or people that were fine with whatever they had, and then now they wanted a better quality of service. On the other side also, we've seen maybe because of the lockdown, because of most of the workforce had to go also back to their home, especially when the airline started to take some extreme measure of locking down, so people wanted to go back. We've got a lot of number of expatriates leaving the country. So on the other side, we've also faced an element of termination also on our jobs. So while the demand on one side has increased also because of the sudden movements of these workforce from the country, we were also hit to a certain extent with a number of terminations. But I would say overall, maybe the telecom sector, I would say maybe the least impacted. And also from an infrastructure perspective, we did really fine. Maybe the other aspect that has impacted us is the lockdown of the country, the restrictions, and also trying to take extra measure from a safety perspective of our workforce and contractor. So we've reduced drastically a lot of our workforce in the field. We've requested most of our contractors to reduce their staff. Also from our side, we've reduced the staff that are interacting and going back to people. We've also done an analysis because what we do also, we visit people's home and we extend the network from the boundary wall inside their houses. So we also went through an element where some of the citizens rejected our contractor and our staff getting into their home because of this pandemic. But that was not very much. I think with our high-level view, it was around 10% rejection. Okay. So, but I think, we thank God things went fine. We were able to create that balance between not stopping our work, fulfilling our duty of extending this network. Especially, it became more of the essential services that people were after. And we felt it's one of the means to make people stay at home, because then when they have a proper telecom infrastructures to their home, then they can do work from home, they can do learning from home, they can also enjoy themselves and enjoy all of the possible entertainment at their home. So I think I feel proud that in one way or another we've played a positive role from that perspective, while also we maintain good health and safety of our staff and our contractor as well.
Perfect. So do you think that operators and countries will invest in fiber to the home and fiber to the building infrastructure and network rollout, as it's improved? It is more reliable than other, let's say, solutions?
I would say everyone realized the importance of the fiber infrastructures ahead of it. Maybe the situation now had made it more appearance to them that robust infrastructure is very important. And we've already seen some elements of movements towards fiber infrastructures. Now, it depends now on one side for how long the telecom regulatory would allow some of this application to continue, which I feel it would have to, even if they have to limit it, but I think they cannot stop it fully. And accordingly, this would also enable people to ask for a better infrastructure so they can sustain that quality of service they need. I think the future is bright from that perspective.
Okay, perfect. So due to the enormous flow of data with the sensitivity and confidentiality through the network, security of data is a challenge. How the fiber connectivity ensure this vital aspect?
People are now conducting more and more social, business and financial transactions digitally. And more people started to trust sharing their personal data on these applications. And hence, security aspect become really vital and crucial.
Sorry, Mr. Bader. So do you think that they have to share or they trust more?
They start trusting more. And that trust has forced them, or I would say naturally made them share a lot of their personal data, because now they have to conduct work from home. They have to conduct their businesses from home. They have to conduct their learning from home. So they get used to these applications. They now become more comfortable of sharing an element of their personal data, so they are able to conduct and fulfill their day-to-day activities. And so then on the other side, security become very critical and very crucial. And when you talk about an open system interactions model, then there are elements of layer that are available. The physical layer, which is the fiber itself, then the data link layers, and then the layer 3, which is the IP networks. If we talk about FTTH or fiber infrastructures, fiber is the physical layer, and it's unlike the other infrastructure or other technology part like wireless or satellites. It's a physical layer, and in the case of Oman broadband, it's exclusively underground. And in the case of fiber, you need to normally put point-to-point connectivity to a specific subscriber. Yeah. And when you talk about the GPON networks, and if you talk about splitting ratio of 1 or 2 to 32, then it becomes even more difficult to identify the right fiber for a specific customer. And then in order to do any specific hacking or any I would say vandalisms into that fiber, then you need to dig down, then you need to identify the right fiber. You need to take the coating. So the process is really, really complex in the case of fiber compared to other technologies. In addition to that, fiber itself is not sensitive to the radio frequency. And so it's not born to a similar kind of interference. Yes, in today's technology, I would say it's very difficult to say it's impossible, but I would say it's the most difficult and complex medium to hack compared to other technologies. So I would say when you have fiber infrastructures, then from that perspective, you should be more safe. I wouldn't say 100%, but it is more safe compared to other technologies that are more prone and easy to intercept compared to the physical layer of fiber.
Okay. Well, Mr. Bader, thank you very much. At the end, I can only thank you for your time and your insight into your life and work at this one-in-lifetime experience in living online. Until we meet again in our next video interview, have a safe and blessed Eid for you and your beloved ones. Stay safe, and thanks a lot, Mr. Bader.
Thank you, Khaloud, and I wish you also happy Eid, inshallah, in a few days. And it was my pleasure, and I hope actually we've managed to share some good insight for people to take away with. And I wish you all the best, inshallah, and hopefully, inshallah, God will take off this COVID-19 at a given point of time, inshallah.
I hope.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bader. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.